Has Premier Ford gathered so much power in his new legislation onto himself that it's a danger to democracy, all in the name of protecting us from COVID? I am broadcasting from the Secret Bar on top of George on Queen Street East. My guest today is Christine Van Geyn. She is with the Canadian Constitution Foundation, and she has an opinion about that. Bill 195 is given royal assent.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing?
So, no. What Bill 195 does is it sort of lets the Premier have his cake and eat it too. It declares that the state of emergency in Ontario is over, but it simultaneously extends a number of emergency orders that were issued during the emergency. So if the emergency is over, why does he need to continue to have access to these extraordinary powers, which in many of the orders, they limit our most fundamental rights that are protected by the Charter?
And the answer is, why does he need to have them? Why does he say that?
So the government wants to have these powers because it's convenient for them. Under the emergency legislation, the orders need to be reissued every 14 days. These orders now are extendable for up to 2 years and only need to be renewed every 30 days.
Without the legislature?
That's right.
Or any oversight? So
they do have to renew them. The other accountability issue that is a big problem is that at the end of the emergency, the government is supposed to table a report. That report now no longer needs to be debated in the legislature. That's something the opposition critics are really opposed to. The problem, though, is, logically, an emergency power should only exist in an emergency. If the emergency is over, the government really should not have access to these continued powers that limit our civil liberties.
Is the emergency over? I mean, there's still, the lockdown in certain areas. There's still not phase 3 in Toronto. May not be for a while. So some people argue that's there.
Statutorily, the emergency is over. Bill 195 declared it over. And an emergency has a very high threshold under the legislation. It means that there needs to be an extraordinary danger that the government cannot deal with using its existing powers, including legislation.
One conservative MPP actually voted against this, and she got booted out of caucus, which, if you're going to vote against the government, you should get booted out of caucus. But, I mean, there has been a lot of debate about this. What's the big danger? Ford's a nice guy. Give him a bit more power for a while.
I would say the biggest danger is for civil liberties, but also for union organizations. Unions should be especially concerned, and union members, about this legislation. It overrides a number of collective agreements that the government has with these union members. It gives them the power to redeploy hospital workers. It limits grievance procedures, and a lot of other really big impediments to union rights. Unions are already talking about challenging this legislation.
And you're going to be following it. Christine Van Geyn, thank you very, very much. That's the 3 minutes. Thank you for watching. We are going to continue to broadcast from the Secret Bar here on top of the George Restaurant Courtyards on Queen Street East in Toronto. In these days, where politicians are spending a lot of your money, Parliament's not sitting, it's important to have an independent news source. That's what we are doing. We hope you subscribe.